Well, it's a very mild September the 24th. Mild despite the generally clear skies, although it is supposed to be mostly cloudy tonight, but with lows only going down to 15 centigrade, so that's warm. So I'm out here at Lound Wood for an evening's moth trapping. And while I start to get set up, you can have a look at this. There's a big difference to the other now. So we should get a few more moths. Let's hope we don't need much more choke. This isn't how the experts do it. My electrical rewiring seems to have worked. Well. I've remembered the thermometer this time. set. Well, it's a beautiful sky, and I'm presuming at some time the space station will be crossing over, but whether it remains clear to see it, I don't know. So this view is facing pretty much southwest, and I'm just outside Lound Wood at the entrance to it, off Red Hill. You do get a lot of moths coming up this side of the wood, and a lot of moths do patrol, like many butterflies do, or male butterflies will patrol the territory. So do a lot of moths, especially geometrids. I don't think noctuids do so much, but not seeing any evidence of that. So, while I go and make a cup of coffee, you can have a few minutes looking at this. Tea from a flask. Not one of the wonders of the world, definitely. Lovely warm temperatures, 18 centigrade. The initial temperature, I think it's still only about 17 now. It's, to be honest, you could trap wearing a t-shirt. 2 Merville du jour. If you saw the last moth trapping video I did, you'll see what a corking moth it is, and I may well get clever and insert an image. And over the other stuff, there's there's been another nice moth. It's a moth called oak nictioline, which is, last time I remember, it was grade 3 listed in Nottinghamshire, so it's a fairly rare or uncommon moth. A lot of species have attracted in the garden. I had 1 or 2 records from the Eakring area, and it's fairly widespread in Nottinghamshire, but not that often caught. So that's a nice moth. Otherwise, there's 1 or 2. What we've got: lunar underwings, pink-barred sallows, and large yellow underwings, Cetaceous Hebrew character, and Emelina monodactyla snout. So it's very promising so far, and you couldn't get any more ideal conditions. It has gone cloudy now. It doesn't look as though there's going to be a clear sky, and that just to the right of the light is the second Merville du jour that's coming. So pleasant, and plenty to keep me occupied. Another beauty. If you need a reason to trap moths, this moth is it. Beautiful. It is, of course, Merville du jour, and this one's just starting to warm its wings up again, and as is normal, gets attacked by a crane fly. But what you couldn't get, unless it was a rare migrant, you can't get a better moth than this time of year. Fabulous coloration, fabulous markings, and most people tend to photograph this sat on lichens, on some lichen covered branch. And this one's going to go any second now. It's going to start and flit around the light again, warming up those wing muscles through the vibrations, and off he goes. A view of the proceedings. No big numbers of moths, but there aren't many moths anyway. The other night when I left here, and I'm just trying to think how far Eakring is away from home. Yeah, I can't remember now. It's certainly between 6 and 10 miles. I saw a grand total of 2 moths in the car headlights on the way home, which even for September is very low. But this dry period doesn't help. Fine weather, while very good for flying insects, tends to mean that broods come and go very quickly. But there certainly aren't the insects that there used to be. Those of us who can remember car journeys in the 70s and 80s will remember the windscreen in the front of the car being an absolute bloodbath of insects. The windscreen would be splattered. You're lucky now if you get one splatter on your windscreen on a long journey, such as the lack of insects. Pesticides are to blame. The constant ever use of pesticides, definitely the chief reason. Other things, habitat loss, etc, etc. But it's unbelievable the lack of insects that there are generally nowadays. Some of you might be screaming at the screen now, well, there's thousands of bloody wasps in my garden. 30, 40 years ago there'd have been 10 times the number. And I've said before, wasps aren't having the best of years. But anyway, we'll go and investigate that that's just fluttered near the light. Now, I showed you one of these briefly in the last trapping video. This is a very common species called a Cetaceous Hebrew character. So called because of the black markings on the wing. You see where those pale cream triangles are? Well, the black marks looks a bit like half of an hourglass. It's similar apparently to a Hebrew letter in the Hebrew language, hence the name Cetaceous Hebrew character. And there's a moth that flies in the spring called a Hebrew character, which is very similar and has a similar kind of marking. I say common species, and another example of how moths are fabulously named. Now, I'm sure all you technophobes out there, you're all wondering, well, how does he power that light then? What system does he use? Well, I can't afford a Honda generator at several £100s. And years ago, the only generators I've had in 20 years of mothing have been two cheap ones. First one was from Aldi. Yes, I went in Aldi once, for God's sake, don't tell the neighbours. But the second one, because the first one performed fantastically over many years, many hours moth trapping, and it never let us down. I must admit, I can't remember it letting us down, but it must have done at some time, because I ended up having to get a new one. And the one I got was advertising back of a Sunday paper, I think, from a place at Kirkby and Ashfield, and this is a Wolf, I think it's a WP 1040 or something generator, and I seem to think it cost about £72. Now the recommendation amongst the moth trapping fraternity is go dearer and buy something like a Honda EU10 or something, which is all very well, spending, say, an extraordinary amount of money on generators, and yes, they might be lighter than these cheaper generators, which do tend to be very heavy, I must admit, despite the fact that they're not terrifically large, although this one's not too bad. But personally, I wouldn't waste my money. Might run a Honda generator might run quieter than this one, but what you want is you want something that powers that thing there and lights the place up. That's what you want, something reliable. And I've had no problems whatsoever with reliability of the two cheap generators that I've had. And if having a heavy generator is fine, if you can take your car to wherever you're going to trap, you certainly won't want to carry it more than 25-50 yards. And so if you've got access, and most people have, if they're trapping in woodlands, they've got access into the woodland by car. And I wouldn't waste my money on an expensive generator. Couldn't afford one if I wanted one. Now I'm quite happy putting up with a bit of noise. If you have a longer cable, you can move it further away. And I always have it sighted the other side of the car, so the car cuts out a lot of the noise. So I hope that keeps all you technophobes happy. No doubt a lot of people will be googling Wolf generators. I've no idea whether they're still going, because we've had this on years. And I think now it's time for another cup of tea. And if you want a progress report of what's been trapped so far in about an hour and a half, it's on there. It's quite neat, doesn't it? I do try and keep it neat. Part of my OCD tendencies. I love neatness and hate having to scribble anything out in any notebook. Anyway, not big numbers, decent range of species. Surprisingly, only one large yellow undoing. Not the prettiest of moth, that this is Oak Nictioline. This is the one that came in earlier. I did pot it up because these are incredibly variable, and to be honest, a lot of newcomers to mothing mistake these for Tortrix moths, and you can see why, because they are. It is like a large Tortrix species. The general shape of the wings and body is consistent with that of many Eclaris species and other Tortrixes. But it's a very fresh individual, nicely marked, but say these are incredibly variable moths, and despite appearing to be a micro moth, are actually a macro moth. Confusing sometimes, this mothing lark, you know. A nice one to catch. It seems like the tawny owls are becoming more vocal. the two that's been in contact with each other this last 20 minutes or so. And still not much else coming. There's been a brimstone that's coming, which is another colourful moth, but late second brood, but still nothing really flying. And of course this time of year, being late September, if you don't like spiders in your house, if you leave your kitchen door open, you tend to get crane flies in. And a lot of people don't like crane flies because of the long legs. And there's two common species that we'll get to, the large ones, and both tipular species. You even got a harvestman. There's a male Liberian black warrior that's trundling along the sheet over there. It's surprising what you do get coming to light. You get lots of caddisflies on certain nights when the conditions are humid. Water boatmen. You get water boatmen coming in as soon as you switch the trap on, then you know you're going to be in for a decent night normally, because that also means that the conditions are good for dispersal, especially with a lot of wetland species. And the conditions you need are humid, usually overcast. And I say, water boatmen appearing at light in numbers is a good sign. You get a wide range of beetles, bugs. I had field damsel bug tonight, and a lot of leaf hoppers, various species. Aphodius roof heaps, which is one of the larger dung beetles that we get. And there's a nice myriad bug that's been sat on the sheet somewhere, I don't know whether it's still here, and that's Pantillus tunicatus, and that's a late flying myriad bug, and a large myriad bug as well. And we have a bit of moth activity. And the temperature is still only 17 centigrade. But now I've got to try and get up off the floor. That'll be fun, but at least you're not going to see it. Well, it's remained quiet. I was hoping that a few more moths would start to come in. But nothing has. I say there's no sign of anything even flying around. And so I think we might as well just start and pack up. will shortly go dark and quiet. I told you. Making sure we don't leave any moths on the light. I need to follow this up to nearly. It'll be going on my bed in a minute. It won't, you're alright. So there we are. Another night. Another night's trapping. Time to go home.